It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mains and Dutch. I'm your host, Mains, and my colleague, who survived the heat wave and is now wearing a jumper, it's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
I believe the colloquial term for what I'm wearing is a shrumper. It looks like it's a shirt and a jumper, but it is in fact just a collar and the jumper.
It's still like a woolen accoutrement, like literally less than 72 hours since the country set itself on fire.
And?
No, just saying. This week, Neil, previews continue and we go NFC South. Usually get Charles here, but Charles is too busy doing like his real job. You know, watching Lancashire choke up at a T20 finals day of the highest order. And
he's actually
things. He's actually doing women's T20 tonight.
He's at the women's T20, yeah.
Yeah, because England versus South Africa is happening as we speak.
I did try and point out that what we're doing is important, but apparently his actual job is more important.
Getting paid is more important. So we will do the NFC South alone. Bottom feeder and Super Bowl contenders alike. We also focus on Neil's winning formula of tight end fantasy ranks. We will give you his top 10 and we will discuss, is there actually 10 people we should be talking about, and is there anyone outside that top 10 who we should also be talking about. But
if you don't get a top 5 tight end, who gives a shit? Seriously, well, just stream it. I write a weekly article.
Don't spoil the rest of the fucking show, but thanks. And before that, Neil, let's get on, as there's been some breaking NFL news. Marvin the Martian, everyone's favourite 2'4" quarterback, Kyler Murray, has been paid. He's agreed a 5-year extension worth $230 million. A source told ESPN's Adam Schefter. Deal which runs through 2028 includes $160 million guaranteed for injury. Murray will make $105 million fully guaranteed upon signing the deal. The average annual value is $46.1 million, which is the second highest behind only Aaron Rodgers, $50.3 million. The quarterback of the Browns will average $46 million, and Patrick Mahomes, who now is reaching bargain stage, averages $45 million. Thoughts on Arizona Cardinals signing Kyler Murray?
Friend of the pod, Brandon Lee Goughton, tweeted, Kyler Murray is 22, 24-1 as a starter, 6-11 in December and January. His December and January stats: it's 64.2% completion rate, 3,824 yards at 6.6 yards per attempt. That's not great. 20 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, 83.9 passer rating, 103 rushes for 577 yards, 4 rushing TDs, and 14 fumbles. So, we can speculate that Arizona are paying for an explosive player who starts hot, and they're basically hoping he can sustain that through the course of not just this season, but many seasons. I'm not going to sit here and suggest that you shouldn't pay your quarterback when they are your best player. I would just want to see a bit more consistency throughout the whole season. However, I do not think the Cardinals have done a great job of surrounding him with talent to suit his skill set. He has hurt himself through his style of play, and they've obviously decided they're comfortable with this, and that's why they've backed up the Brinks truck. Does it make them Super Bowl contenders? No. It's not a great roster. It really isn't. Unproven talent around him. They insist on picking tweeners on defense rather than people who've actually got a position. But, in theory, they don't have to worry about quarterback for the next 5 years, so it's one less headache.
Robert Mays, who we know and love. I want someone to explain the Arizona Cardinals to me. Not that the Kyler contract is bad or the wrong decision, but explain what they are to me in 5 minutes or less. I challenge anyone to actually do it. Which is kind of what we're saying, right? Like, I think you've got to pay a quarterback who I think is good. Has a chance to be great, I think. Although Brandon raises some valid points on how he plays and size and whatever. I'm not convinced by the coach. I think, breaking news for the NFC West pod, I think this is his last season in Arizona. Steve Keim's like the poor man's Howie Roseman. Like he's got the 9 lives, but without any of the good stuff that Howie gives you. Kyler should have got paid, and he did, and that's fine. But I still think this is the 3rd best team in their division. I don't think that changes by this. And what this means for me, really, in this kind of a news sense, is, does that mean that Lamar Jackson is going to expect $50 million a year?
Probably. Just a quick question. I'm not up on college football as much as you. Who's the coach of Oklahoma? Because it was Lincoln Riley, wasn't it? But he's gone to USC, hasn't he?
He has, yes. And the new coach of Oklahoma is a very good question. Is Brett Venables, he was the defensive. I think he was the defensive coordinator at Clemson under Dabo Swinney.
So it'd be Cliff Kingsbury next year then.
Possibly. But what I mean, it's not. Yeah. On the Lamar question, this makes Lamar's position stronger, weaker, makes no difference.
Obviously, it's an impact because Jackson's going to say, well, look what this fella's been paid. I've got a league MVP under my belt. Mm. Granted, no postseason success to speak of, but he led the league in touchdowns, league MVP, the best pure runner in the NFL. It's certainly a starting point. I don't think Jackson's going to take less. So, Kyler, enjoy this tag for as long as you can, because if the Ravens are seriously committed to Jackson, it's going to get blown by very quickly.
Yeah, excellent. Let's get on with the bulk of the show, Neil, and let's talk fancy ranks. This week, tight ends, Neil's expertise. As always, these lists will always be PPR, as Neil decreed it. So, Neil, from 10 to 1, please give me your PPR rankings for tight end.
10 to 1, we go TJ Hawkinson, Zach Ertz, Dawson Knox, Dallas Goedert, George Kittle, Dalton Schultz, Mark Andrews, Darren Waller, Kyle Pitts, Travis Kelce.
Top 10 by ADP at present is 10 Dawson Knox, 9 Zach Ertz, 8 Dallas Goedert, 7 TJ Hawkinson, 6 Dalton Schultz, 5 Darren Waller, 4 George Kittle, 3 Kyle Pitts, 2 Mark Andrews, and 1 Travis Kelce. You've already kind of answered this question, Neil, but I'm going to ask it anyway so you can elaborate a little bit more. Are these top 10 the must-haves, or are some of the top 10 even a shot in the dark?
I wouldn't say shot in the dark. I think if you don't get the top 4, shall we say, then you could probably make the case, should you wait and get a real late rounder or contemplate streaming. I don't think if you got one of the top 10, assuming all things being equal and everything goes out right, I don't think you'd be worrying about tight end. I think these are like the safest floor tight ends in the league, quite frankly. So I think if you got one of these, you wouldn't worry about it. But I think if you got anyone after this, you'd be expecting a breakout of sorts from that player, or you're just going to stream.
You have Mark Andrews at 4. He is number 2 in ADP. Why are you a little lower on Andrews?
As with all things, it comes down to volume. Tight end is a ridiculously volatile position, and we know that there can be situations where a player can catch one pass for 1 yard. As long as it's a touchdown, they can finish top 12. I think in terms of consistency, I just think that the players ahead of him are going to see more passes. Also, I think that the players ahead of him are going to play in more pass-friendly offenses. I think the Ravens enjoyed the season they catapulted Mark Andrews into fantasy superstardom, but are going to realise it didn't work for them. So they want to go back to being run heavy. Now, we know that Jackson has this chemistry with Andrews, and Andrews obviously is good in the red zone, but I just think that as good as he can be, I think the other 3 players ahead of him, for me, I think they're more likely to finish as the tight end 1 than he is, despite finishing the tight end 1 last season.
You have Kittle at 6. Kittle is 4 at draft position. Is there a bigger buyer beware on that list, given situation, i.e. he could just block all the time, and also injury?
Yeah, he's the biggest risk. Pound for pound, he's probably the best two-way tight end in the NFL. He's the best receiving, in terms of receiving and blocking. The problem is that he plays for an offense that wants him to block, and he's admitted he loves blocking. Never admit that, George. Never.
I was going to say, yeah.
So the fact that we know Shanahan wants to be run heavy, we know that Trey Lance, by his very nature, is going to suck targets out of this passing game because he's going to run the ball himself. It's going to be a low volume role. So we're banking on efficiency. Efficiency at the tight end position does not a tight end 1 overall make. So while I'm not writing him off completely, I'd much rather have the players ahead of him. And the case could be made that maybe a couple of the players behind him could overtake him if the 49ers have a successful season, because that means they're not going to be passing the ball.
Final question on the tight end, Neil. You are the tight end expert, go-to man. Is there anyone outside of this top 10 list who you think, maybe keep an eye on them, they will be in the top 10 next year?
Well, 2 names that potentially could break out, as it were, would be Irv Smith, who's obviously now he's with the Vikings. They have a new head coach in Kevin O'Connell, who's coming from the McVay tree, and that basically means, I would assume, that they're going to live in 11 personnel. So that's 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end. Smith's the only real tight end in town. So when you think about it, it's got Justin Jefferson. Thielen is falling down a little bit. Then you've got the likes of KJ Osborne, or maybe Amir Smith-Marset. These are unproven talents, I think, whereas Irv Smith has shown he can deliver. He's not going to be a 25% target guy, of course he's not, but he can, make some noise between the 20s and also do get something done in the red zone. And the other one is someone that I just suspect that, in the words of the Lightning Seeds, we're waiting for today to happen, and always have been, with David Njoku. But the case seems to be that now he is the guy. Now, Cleveland do not have a talented wide receiver core. They just don't. We know that they're going to want to put multiple tight ends on the field, but Njoku is the best athlete at the position. He does have a pass-catching category. He loves to rack up the yak, needs to squeeze the ball a bit more. He has had some egregious drops over the years. I just think that he could be finally ready to break out, and the Browns have shown they do have faith in him. That's why they gave him all that dough. But they're the 2 real breakouts I think that we need to be looking for. Other names, of long-standing tradition, you've got Gerald Everett. He's now with the Chargers. Anthony Ferguson. There's no one else to throw to. There's other teams. I mean, Logan Thomas apparently suffered a much more serious injury than we first thought, and how late it was in the season. He's not a lock to be ready for week 1, so that makes John Bates, I think, vaguely interesting. If you've got a really, really deep league, I like Daniel Bellinger, but I don't think he's going to make much noise as a rookie, but he could be here for next season.
Brilliant stuff, Neil. Now let's get on with the NFC South preview. NFC South, before we start, schedule for the league is NFC West, AFC North, 1 NFC North, 1 NFC East, and 1 AFC West. First team on the board, the Atlanta Falcons. Biggest off-season headline is bye-bye to Matt Ryan, and all who's hailing him, former MVP, and I don't know if you heard, but once nearly won a Super Bowl. The big question for the team, though.
I ask the questions.
If this team doesn't pick 1 in next year's draft, is this season considered a failure?
I don't think they have to pick 1. I think there's going to be at least a couple of quality quarterbacks at the top of the draft for them to look at. But this is not a good roster. It's not a talented defense. I worry about the offense because the quarterback choices are Marcus Mariota, who's shown flashes but never really looked like he could put it all out there, or Desmond Ridder, who was okay in college for Cincinnati. I mean, it's not a big power, it's not a Power 5 program by any stretch, but I just think this is one of the more talent-poor rosters in the entire NFL. There's not a lot of enthusiasm I can draw up about any part of it. Maybe Grady Jarrett's still great, so what? Calvin Pitts, they have an emerging talent, a freak, a unicorn at the position. So what? Who's throwing on the ball? No one cares. He could. You'd hope he scores more than one touchdown this year, but are they going to be in the red zone that often? I don't know. This is what makes him slightly risky in fantasy. We're all banking on this huge volume, and there's no one else in the passing game. Well, we saw last year they ran the crap out the ball when they shouldn't have done. They may just think this season, say, yeah, we're going to lose anyway. Let's just pound the rock. So I worry about the Falcons. I just assume that everyone's on board and that there is a bit of, in the words of Evan Silver, maybe a soft tank required. But they're certainly going to be in play for that first overall pick because I think they're far and away the weakest team in this division.
I think on paper they're the worst team in the NFC. I assume that's deliberate. I don't think you deliberately are this bad. I think you are deliberately this bad. I don't think you try to be good and become this bad. The moves in terms of getting rid of Matt Ryan suggests a partial white flag. Having no wide receivers of note, or basically the Kyle Pitts being your only attacking weapon suggests the other case. They got an excellent cornerback, probably got two excellent cornerbacks. That's a bit weird. Like the best two of their three best players on the team are corners. Not normal. You need to start again. Atlanta are a funny team because I think they're well represented and supported, but they're not the most popular football team in the state of Georgia. That's the Bulldogs, right? And you could argue that the Georgia Tech are more popular as well. But anyway, I digress. This team is duking right now, pre-season. This team is duking it out with the Houston Texans to decide which one of the quarterbacks they pick first, and we'll see what happens. We say
I just
all
think
that
as well, rightly so. Matt Ryan is pissed at this team because how it ended. You don't do that to the best player in franchise history. And I know what to say, we joked and mocked saying his arm had gone and whatnot last year. It's a franchise legend, and basically you were standing in front of him flicking through Tinder looking for a replacement, and then when you didn't get one, tried to come and say, we still cool, Matt?
Yeah.
It was never Matt Ryan, was a decent bloke, I assume, and a good soldier. He was never going to say, yeah, we'll be fine. I know you don't want me, so let's crack on. So at least they didn't try and force a reconciliation for the sake of the kids. They literally just said, no, we need to get divorced now, and sent him on his way. But yeah, didn't sit right with me.
No. We've slagged the team off, so let's try and do at least something good and talk about Fancy Darling.
Hello, darling.
Well, if you're like me, and let's hope you're not, and all you really want from your running back two is volume and opportunity without really worrying about how many passes he's going to catch or score touchdowns, then you might want Tyler Algier. He's going ridiculously late for someone who could lead his team in carries and rushing yards. The worry is that he's not going to catch that many passes, and I don't think he's going to score that many touchdowns. But for where he's going, he's not a bad option to plug in, especially if you've gone robust hero RB or zero RB. I just wouldn't expect a Saquon Barkley-esque rookie season from him.
I love it when you give me a name that 90% of the people who listen to the show have never heard of. Let's find out who Neil is. cautious on in buyer beware.
I like Drake London, but I just worry that he's not someone I want to be pinning my fantasy hopes on in his rookie season in an offense that's going to run the ball too much and have either Marcus Mariota or Desmond Ridder throwing it. I don't think his skill set meshes with what either of those players do well, which I don't know what it is. And you can get the argument, yeah, there's no one else competing for targets except Kyle Pitts. Yeah, so just Kyle Pitts. This team's going to suck. So, Drake London, what's he going to do? We would need him to be Calvin Johnson from day one. Calvin Johnson wasn't Calvin Johnson from day one. His rookie season, he got 750 yards and a couple of touchdowns. Was that worth a bean in fantasy? No. So, Drake London will look in 2023 when there's an actual different quarterback.
Atlanta Falcons, more likely to be discussed by draftniks in Week 18 in the Super Bowl or not at all.
They're already being discussed by draftniks, let's be honest.
Saints, Rams, Seahawks on the road, Browns, at Bucks, 49ers, at Bengals, Panthers, Rams, Panthers. Week 11 they play the Chicago Bears. I could argue it's the first game they're favoured in. That's not good. It's not good, Bob. And even if there was let's have an argument about them playing the Browns in week 4, cool. Okay, I was wrong. They're favoured twice in their first 11 games. Again, not good. This team's discussed by draftniks and should be. 8:30 UK time, BT Sport. Atlanta Falcons fans, pay attention, because that's the time you may see Bryce Young play for Alabama. Earlier than that, around 5 p.m, Ohio State play. You might see CJ Stroud. Those are two games that should be more interest to you than the Atlanta Falcons games this season. Sorry, don't mean to be rude. My friend Thomas Willoughby, legend. It's not going to be fun. It's just not. Let's move on, Neil. Next team is the Carolina Panthers. And biggest off-season headline is they still have the same head coach that they finished last season with. He hung on. Some would say for grim death. The big question is,
I ask the questions.
Can good Baker get this team to a winning record?
No. What actually is good Baker? Because we've seen that many iterations of him in his short career. Do we expect we're going to see the rookie season where he, willed a very weak and, as we know, tortured franchise to near relevancy, when everyone then assumed the next year they'd go straight to Super Bowl candidates and they fell in the face? Are we going to see the facilitator that Kevin Stefanski had in the first season that we haven't seen since? Or are we just going to have literally the best quarterback that DJ Moore's played with, and it's a very low bar to clear? I don't think Mayfield is the guy. I'm happy to be proved wrong, because I think his commercials are very funny. But I just think this team has problems, and it starts with the head coach, because, they are another team where the head coach thought at his job interview, I'll say analytics and it might get me the job, and it did. Analytically, they're pathetic. Coming out with they fired their offensive coordinator Joe Brady during the season because he was passing the ball too much. And then they came out and said, we want to run the ball 35 times. Yeah, but you're shite. You can run the ball 35 times as you want. You're not going to get that many plays because you're going to be punting an awful lot. And I'm not being funny as well. We've done the Ben McAdoo offense. We know that the Ben McAdoo offense comes from the Mike McCarthy offense that works really well when you've got a Hall of Fame quarterback operating it. They don't. So what are we going to do? We're going to see slant till you can't. Slant till you can't. To DJ Moore. Is that it? Is that going to be offense? There's not enough playmakers on defense. There's some good pieces. I like some of the pieces on defense, but I don't think they've got the horses offensively, especially not in this division.
This team is nowhere near as talent bereft as the Atlanta Falcons.
No.
Does that mean they're good? No. But I'm not sure, with the exception of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, anyone's good in this division. So, you play your schedule and you play the Atlanta Falcons twice. You want Baker to be, run heavier, play action pass, which you would expect to see with Christian McCaffrey if he can stay upright. It's one of those things where the team's got no draft picks and at best could get maybe 8 or 9 wins this season, but what does that mean? Congratulations, you're in the middle. That is a problem. It's also a problem for the head coach when the owner, who, let's be honest, right now has shown no semblance of being a good owner, but is a rich person who's new to this, who's probably never lost in his life, hence the fact he's a billionaire. I don't think he's going to accept mediocrity. And I think what I'm saying is, if we get good Baker, this team could be mediocre. That's not good. I mean, it's okay, but yeah. When we do the NFC South every year, I regularly struggle to name all the 4 teams without looking it up. This team is completely nondescript. And, in a pure form, I'm not sure how they exist. Neil, who's the fancy darling though?
Hello, darling.
While the fantasy star will undoubtedly be Christian McCaffrey, assuming he's fit and healthy for a full season, for me the darling is actually DJ Moore, because as much as I do mock the signing of Baker Mayfield, it is the best quarterback that DJ Moore's played with, and sadly it's not even close. Now, DJ Moore is one of the more unheralded wide receiver ones in the NFL. I mean, he's had 1,100 yards from scrimmage in each of the last 4 seasons, I think. He's the only player to do that. Problem is, in fantasy, is that he's never scored more than 4 touchdowns in a season. Well, maybe that can change this with Mayfield if they can pick up some nice chemistry. He's a big play man. I mean, he's had more 50-yard receptions than anyone else in the NFL since 2018. It's DJ Moore. He'd be good. He's just sadly on the Andre Johnson career path, which is never a good one. But I think for where he's going, he's certainly wide receiver 2 with a bit of touchdown upside. Maybe he can knock on the door of wide receiver 1. But for where he's going, I think he's an excellent value.
Let's find out who's by everywhere.
So you take Christian McCaffrey, 1 or 2. You take DJ Moore at his ADP. You don't need to worry about anyone else in this team. Don't come at me with Robbie Anderson. Miss me with Terrace Marshall. Donta Foreman maybe as a late round stash in case something should happen to Christian McCaffrey. But anyone else, Tommy Tremble, please. Ian Thomas, done that. You certainly don't need Baker Mayfield in any format. So get those 2. Maybe if you can, keep Donta Foreman on the emergency list. Other than that, stay clear.
The Carolina Panthers more likely to be discussed by draftniks in Week 18 in the Super Bowl or not at all?
I think they're slap bang in the middle of not at all. Because as you said, they have enough talent in some spots to keep them competitive, but I don't think they have enough talent to get them over the top, and they will lose the games they're expected to lose. I don't think they're going to pull any upsets out their ass.
In that sense, Neil, weeks 3 through 7, they are at home to the Cardinals, the 49ers, they're on the road against the Rams, and then they play the Buccaneers. Like, season's kind of defined on that. They're either 0-4 and they're 0-4, or they're 3-1 and, maybe we're wrong. The last 2 games are at Tampa, at the Saints, so enjoy that. Even if I'm not sure the Saints are good, don't think that's your best bet. They are, I think, the walking definition of not at all, as we define the dictionary definition of this. There's games they'll win here, and there's games they'll lose. And yeah, throw some of them in the air and we'll see what happens between 6 and 9 wins. Yeah, great. Fire everyone and start again. Let's move on to what I believe is, of all the teams we've done so far, the most confounding one, and that's the New Orleans Saints. Biggest off-season headline is they don't have Sean Payton anymore, which is a pretty big thing. The big question.
I ask the questions.
Is this team as good as they think they are?
God, no.
If they were as good as they think they are, they'd be in the Super Bowl, right?
There's an old expression, I'd like to buy them at my price and sell them at theirs. Because as you say, they consistently make all-in personnel decisions that they really shouldn't. I mean, look at what they gave up to trade up for Chris Olave. I'm sure Chris Olave is a good player. I have him in Dynasty. But I don't think the moves they made to go up and get him, that's not the move of a team that's thinking, okay, let's restock the cupboard. He's the final piece. He's not. Come on. You got Jameis Winston, who you didn't let throw last year. Now there's no Sean Payton. We expect Pete Carmichael to, unleash the hounds. Michael Thomas is the biggest enigma in the NFL. We don't know, we haven't seen him for 2 years. Is he still Michael Thomas? Well, I don't know. I suppose his game still might translate. He was never like a burner. He was never, he was just, consistent. Throw it his way, he will catch it. But we haven't seen that for 3 years. They had Jarvis Landry, who really is that where we are? Jarvis Landry's been a good, productive pro, but he's got by on volume his entire career. You look historically, he's very, very inefficient. He gets what's given to him. He doesn't rack up yak. He's not a massive scorer of touchdowns. He's not a big play threat. Alvin Kamara was run into the dirt to an extent last year, and I say we still don't know about his legal situation, although I suspect the way it's dragging on that he may be safe this year. Again, they've got some good pieces on defense. Their offensive line is going to take a hit because they lost Tron Armstead. I think they think they're right on the doorstep, but I don't think they're in the same class in their own division as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So could they sneak in as a wild card if they win enough games? Yeah, they could. Do I want to bank on it? No, I don't think I do.
We have had multiple debates about Sean Payton and his head coaching chops. I land on the side of I think he's very, very good at his job, and that he has got a team that has never been as talented as everyone believed on offense to be an excellent offensive team. They don't have him anymore, and they have Jameis Winston as their quarterback. I don't see how this team scores loads of points. And there was loads of first round wide receivers. Like, unless I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I'm not sure I need to give up all that dough for Chris Olave. The defense has been good the last few years, and they still have good talent on there. But I'm not. If someone told me this team won 4 games, or someone told me this team won 11 games, I'd be like, yeah, okay. Because I have no sense of this team whatsoever. Like, I don't know what to expect from them. I really don't. They could be good, they could be bad. I don't know. Like every other team we've done so far, I've had the sense of this is a good team, this is a bad team, this is a meh team. I have no sense of this team whatsoever. I have no clue if they're going to be good or not.
And the thing is as well, that what we've seen in the past, considering the loose grip this ownership has on this team, is that if they do bottom out, they're unlikely to go into full clear-out mode because they just don't do that. So it's a case of whatever this team is this year, there's a good chance that that'll be what this team is for at least the Dennis Allen reign.
Who's the fancy darling on this team, O'Neill?
Hello, darling.
Well, I fancy Darling considering his current ADP. It's probably Chris Olave. I say, now, again, I'm not going crackers and saying he's going to be an overall wide receiver 1, but he is the best, healthiest wide receiver on their roster at the time. He plays on the outside, so he's going to get he's got the potential for the big play, and he is a field stretcher. You know, he did that in college. Michael Thomas, as I say, is an enigma. We don't know what we're going to get from him. Jarvis Landry has been a wide receiver 1 in the past, but that was purely because of volume, and I don't think he's going to get it on this team because they only had Jameis Winston pass the ball 23 times a game last year. So I honestly don't expect they're going to open it up and have him slinging the rock 50 times. So I like Olave where he's going. I just, you can argue. I think as more and more casual drafters start coming into the fold now, Alvin Kamara's ADP is going to start going back to where it should be, especially if they're going to get him for the full, 16-week fantasy season. So for the moment, he's probably a value, but I suspect in a few weeks he won't be. Whereas I think Chris Olave might just settle where he is.
That's the good news. What's the bad news? Who's buyer beware?
Michael Thomas. We just don't know what we're going to get from him. So in 2019, he led the NFL, set records in receptions, receiving yards, and did have an eye and a nose for the end zone. He's played 7 games since. Hasn't looked the same. Hasn't been as sure-handed. Hasn't moved as fluently. And, he hasn't built up any on-field chemistry with Jameis Winston. So I just don't think we're not getting a 120 target wide receiver from Michael Thomas anymore. I just don't think we're going to. So we're going to have to rely on hyper efficiency. And he wasn't that efficient. It was, catch, get what's blocked for me, fall down. He wasn't a big play machine. He relied on 10 to 15 targets a game, and I don't think he's going to get that. And we still have to run the risk of him not playing at all.
True.
So I think he's just too risky. Quick question, and I'll echo again from Evan Silver on the Establish and Run podcast. Who is Sean Payton coaching in 2023, and why is it the Dallas Cowboys?
There's no way I can see a world where he doesn't coach Dallas next year.
The irony being, of course, that McCarthy beat Payton to the Packers job in 2006, and now he's going to come and take his job.
Yeah. The New Orleans Saints, more likely to be discussed by Draftniks in Week 18 in the Super Bowl or not at all?
I'm going to say Week 18 because they were in playoff consideration last year with Ian Book started game, Trevor Siemian started games. They just found a way. And I know they haven't got Sean Payton anymore, but a lot of the pieces are still in place. So they're such a weird team. I can see them being in contention to the end. I could also, like yourself, see them winning 4 or 5 games and everyone like, oh, bloody hell. Didn't we not appreciate the good times enough? So I'm going to hedge on the positive side and say, especially with 7 teams who go to the playoffs, they could be a playoff contender because of their defense, but I'm not confident.
Let's play this is a home team conversation. When everyone used to think they won all their home games and they actually never did, but let's say they are. Bucks, Vikings, Seahawks, Raiders, Ravens, Rams, Falcons, Panthers. They need to win 6 of those games probably. For those, the home teams don't like playing in bad weather. Week 16 at the Cleveland Browns, Week 17 at the Philadelphia Eagles. I think this team is discussed not at all. They won with Ian Book and Taysom Hill and Trevor Siemian because Sean Payton was the offense. He no longer is. This team ain't gonna be good. I think I might put forward an argument that this is the 3rd best team in this division.
Whoa.
Final team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. the biggest off-season headlines, all those retirements and unretirements and soon-to-be unretirements and future retirements. The big question.
I ask the questions.
Does the change of coach change the bombs away style of play?
No. Brian Leftwich was running the offense last year, and that's Bruce Arians spoke quite openly. He only took the Tampa Bay head coaching job because he wanted Byron Leftwich to run the offense. He had no intention of coming back and taking it over himself. He wanted to be the CEO overseeing things while he trusted Todd Bowles to run the defense and Byron Leftwich to run the offense. And Leftwich did a wonderful job. So I don't see what changes. From an offensive philosophy, this team passes the shit out of the ball. When they're behind, they pass. When the game scores within one, when the game's within one score, they pass. When they're ahead, they pass. They pass when they lead more than any team in the NFL. This is how you get the best out of Tom Brady. You run lots of plays and you pass a lot of them. So I don't think anything's going to change. The defense is probably a bit weaker than it was, so they're going to have to scheme up a bit. But I think Todd Bowles has earned the trust that he can oversee that. I know he's not the DC, but he's going to, it's going to be his defense. So, no, I think this is one of the signature Super Bowl contenders of the entire conference. I don't see anything changing. They've lost Gronk. Chris Godwin might be injured for the first few weeks. So what? Until that fella officially retires and is wearing a Fox Sport blazer, sat in a booth, I'm fed up writing them off. So I'm not going to do it anymore.
This offense will do whatever Tom Brady wants to do. If Tom Brady wants to throw it dead far like he has done the last couple of years, he will continue to do so. In a slightly unrelated note, Albert Breer has just announced the New England Patriots have announced their coaching staff titles. Joe Judge is offensive assistant / quarterbacks. Matt Patricia is senior football advisor / offensive line. Steve Belichick and Jared Mayo are linebackers coaches. So New England doesn't have an OC or a DC. In the ongoing war, quote unquote, between Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and who's winning in the divorce, Tom is by knockout, and is at present digging a big effing hole for Bill.
Yeah, the ref is holding up his fingers, asking, how many are holding up, and Bill Belichick is saying, lawnmower.
I'm sure it could change, and that's fine. But back to the Bucks. The Godwin injury is an issue. They have got rid of that balloon case. Russell Gage is a nice addition. I was listening to Evan Silver on the Athletic Football Show today, and Evan Silver believes this is the year that Mike Evans cements his position as a Hall of Fame wide receiver, because he may get 1 billion touchdowns this year. Feasible. Feasible until week 7 when Godwin and Gronk come back. But yeah, this team is the best team in this division, right? The schedule, which we'll get to, leads me to believe they won't be the 1 seed. And also, I don't think Tom necessarily cares about that kind of stuff. They will host at least one playoff game, and then we'll see where we go from there, right? Because that's what this team is dealing in now, right? Win a division, win your first playoff game, see what happens. That's where we are, and that's where this team is going to be until 12 decide he doesn't want to play anymore, which, I don't know, could be 2030 at this point.
Oh, we'll be retiring before he does.
Oh, yeah, looking forward to it. Let's find out who the fancy darling is for this team.
Hello, darling.
Well, as I've said, and you alluded to there, Evan, who's now been mentioned 3 times in this pod. Considering it's been 7 years since he was last on this pod, we should probably try and get him on, but we'll give it a go. Mike Evans is going to score 1 billion touchdowns. That's great. You're going to have to pay for that. the noises out of Tampa are very positive about Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin is Brady's favourite target. Weeks 1 to 14 last season, Godwin had a 22% target share. Mike Evans had an 18%. He looks to Godwin first. He averages 9.59 adjusted yards per attempt in his career when targeting Chris Godwin. That's one of the highest link-ups of Brady's entire career. Now, I know he's not exactly always had Hall of Famers around him, Randy Moss, Gronk, people like that. I know he had them, but he also was successful for a long time with Rashay Caldwell, Deion Branch, David Patton, Kembrell Tompkins. You know, these type of players. For one of his most efficient link-ups to be with Chris Godwin, I think is important. Godwin, I think at the moment, is going around wide receiver 40. He may miss a few games at the start of the season, but when he comes back, assuming he is healthy, he's going to hoover up a lot of targets. So you are potentially getting a high-end wide receiver 2 at low-end wide receiver 4 prices. So go for it.
Let's find who Neil's not as high on with buyer beware.
Until he comes back, and I think we all agree he will, don't get too caught up in the tight ends in the post-Gronk world. K. Dalton, come on, seriously. Cameron Brate has been, you know, I think he's got like a skeleton key and just keeps finding his way back in. They've actually cut him 6 times, I think, but he just keeps finding his way back into the meeting room, so they just keep him around. There's no point getting a Buccaneers tight end. They're not going to try and replace Gronk's output. They'll just put it on the wide receivers. So that means little boost for Evans, for Godwin, for Gage, for Fournette, assuming he slims down. Maybe Rashad White picks up a bit of a pass catching role. So don't think the Buccaneers tight end is a source of potential fantasy value until Gronk comes back.
Cameron Brate, get that money, man. Tampa Bay Buccaneers more likely to be discussed by draftniks in Week 18 in the Super Bowl or not at all?
Super Bowl, there are, say, aside from them and the LA Rams are the favourites in the NFC, and whichever team, they're going to have to beat each other to get to the Super Bowl. So,
this team wins the division. How they fare in relation to the 1 seed or a bye, or the bye, I guess, will be defined by the first 5 weeks of their schedule. They play at the Cowboys, at the Saints, at home to the Packers, at home to the Chiefs. This is a Super Bowl caliber roster and team with the greatest quarterback of all time. It will be naive to say anything other than in the Super Bowl. I don't think they will be the 1 seed, maybe not even the 2, but they will be in the playoffs and they will win a playoff game. So yeah, good luck to them, because not like they need it, but yeah. What I would say to Charles is wring as much of that joy out as you can, because you never know when it may disappear again and never come back.
I don't wish them luck.
Well, you know, I know you don't. That's because you're the 1 seed and you're going to have to play them in Philadelphia. And we all know how much fun Philadelphia versus Tampa Bay in Philadelphia is.
No, it isn't.
No, honestly, it is. I remember it. I was there with you. It was no, don't remember. No,
never
anyway.
happened.
Okay, that's it for this week. Next week we will drift off to AFC World again, and this time we will be looking at AFC North. I'm trying desperately not to avoid talking about the Cleveland Browns for more than 2 minutes. Before we get on to that, Neil, where can people catch you?
Follow me on Twitter at @NDutton13. This week I wrote a piece for Numberfire on potential first overall picks in 2023. Yes, some people are already betting on this stuff, so look for that. I should have a piece out on for 4 for 4. I'm arguing the case of Chris Godwin over Allen Robinson at current cost. So I enjoyed writing that. That's where I got the figures from when I was talking about Godwin. And yeah, just follow me on Twitter for the usual nonsense. I may do a video for our cricket on Sunday, as long as it doesn't rain. So be on the lookout for that.
Let's hope it doesn't rain. I am at Mandy7. Combine me at waxing_lyrical. NFC South in the books. Apologies, no Charles Dagnall this year. We will catch him up later on. As always, these top guys are out.